I have been always fascinated by the effect that media has on people. I always felt that there are macroscopic patterns that are present in the overall media sphere that are not seen in the individual articles that you can only appreciate if you could read everything. This is a kind of a sort of consciousness of mankind. Everything that we talk about to each other, that we read about, is somehow represented in the media sphere. All the articles we read, all the tweets we send, all the Facebook posts. There are patterns in this enormous system that are just invisible unless you step out of it and look at it from a distance as a system. And that cannot be done unless you can have software to read it all. I was fascinated always by thinking of it as one single gigantic information processing system. A social scientist perspective is different. They want to understand the social aspects of it, and they do it in a very similar way, but they cannot access this kind of scale. So we thought we can develop these tools, provide them to the social scientists, and maybe together try to understand how the contents of the media are both shaped by public opinion and also how they shape it. Well, there are lots of media outlets out there, newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, blogs, social networks, Facebook and Twitter. The contents of all of these media outlets we call the media sphere. Traditional newspapers should be in the order of 10,000 in the world, maybe 20,000, but it's that kind of size. And then on top of it, you need to add various TV stations and radio stations that have a web presence today. We are monitoring in this moment a bit over 1,100 outlets, and we read all the contents in 24 different languages. Yeah, it is big data, so just the management of it is challenging. We have 8 different servers connected to a very fast internet connection. We monitor the content of these outlets constantly. We recognize if anything has changed. So all the new information that we haven't seen yet will be gathered, stored, translated if needed. Dozens of different software agents will annotate it. We are going to extract topic, sentiment, readability. We are going to find key information in the articles like people, locations, organizations that the article is describing. And everything gets saved and stored in a database for later analysis. If you analyze big data, it is very difficult for us to even imagine what it is to deal with 70,000 newspaper articles. You know, just imagine for a second that you organize them in 1 page per article. The stream of text coming into our system is very, very fast. Of course, you couldn't read it. And you can see here a simulation of how much data we get constantly, day and night. If you were to fill a bookshelf, you would have many bookshelves per day. And then you would have many libraries per year. And all of this needs to be sorted, understood, analyzed, clustered, processed, and so on. I spent a lot of time in my school days doing what is called parsing, finding the subject, the verb, and the object of a sentence, for example. And that was a large part of my homework. And it is now possible to do it by machine. So if you have a sentence like this, the king sees the premier, or Martians invade Earth, you know the subject is the king, sees is the verb, and the premier is the object. Because then you have a triplet, an actor, an action, and another actor. And so you can turn a stream of articles into a stream of triplets, like this. During the US election, we analyzed 200,000 articles, and several triplets per article were extracted. And we can filter them, extract those that are most credible, statistically, they've been seen many times. So we can turn a very fast stream of articles into a slightly slower trickle of triplets. Because a triplet is like the smallest story you can tell. It's the unit in narration. And then you can make a network. Every actor is a node, every action is a link, and you can make a network of every statement or every action that one actor has made towards another action. And we have a list. Which actions are positive, which actions are negative. If Obama praises Romney, that's a positive. If Obama criticizes Romney, that's a negative. And we can form this network over 1 year and generate this huge, large object that we can see here, where nodes represent actors, links represent relations. The color of the links represents green if they're positive and red if they're negative. And they are directed and weighted. So there is the strength of the opposition and the strength of the support between candidates is captured by this network. And in this structure, we can find a lot of valuable information about the political relations in that country. As one example, we can extract readily this ranking of all the candidates. It just comes out naturally from a very simple network analysis, who are the key players and how they relate with each other, and the two parties come beautifully separated. So if you were to analyze the media of a completely unknown country where you don't know anything about, you would quickly find who is important, who is not important, who are their allies, who are their opponents, how many parties, and so on. And during the primary phase of that election, we could also extract information about the various contenders, people trying to become candidates for the main election. And we could color them based on how negative they were in their statements. They would be red. We could plot them based on how frequently they are mentioned and how much they are subjects in the narration. So you can see here an entire year of news in 1 minute video, showing how each candidate, one after the other, rose to prominence and then fell down, changing from being a viable candidate to not being any more viable, until Romney and Obama remain as winners. So far we've seen that we can extract information about the contents of many articles and integrate it into one single picture. But that's about the content. How about the readers? What do people like to read? And instead of asking them to fill a questionnaire, we just want to analyze what they do. Most newspapers online, you will find a page like this one, containing a lot of news articles. And you have a choice when you go there. There are maybe 10 different articles. And there is often a section, this one, the most read stories or the most popular stories. It tells you which ones are the top 10 most popular stories of that moment in that outlet. People went on a page, they saw 10 stories. One of them was chosen, another was not. By collecting millions of those pairs, the winner and the loser, we can see what is the difference, what makes them different. And we have indeed collected 2.5 million such pairs from more than 10 different outlets over many years. And now we can do a very serious statistical analysis of what words make people click. And we can see what are the words that will make people click, colored in pink, and what are the words that are going to put people off. So we can see here people being very interested in some topics, for example, entertainment or crime, and much less interested in public affairs, economics, politics. And that is a very strong signal in this case of this outlet. Other outlets have different signals, but again, the trend towards preferring non-public affairs, like entertainment, over public affairs is general across the board in all audiences we analyzed. So that is something that we can take just from very large amounts of data. By reading the contents of communications between people, like Twitter and Facebook, surely we can get some information. So we started gathering over many years, many millions of tweets, for the UK only, for the United Kingdom. And we gathered in this study 484 million tweets in the main cities of the UK over more than 1 year. And we could see interesting relations. So in the first studies were aimed at detecting outbreaks of flu and similar things, in which we were able to find very strongly as a signal that it is possible when people talk to each other about feeling sick or feeling tired or feeling cold, that's a signal, if they all do it at the same time, in the same place, that something is going on there. And we could correlate our findings with the data of the Health Protection Agency, revealing a clear correlation. So it is not predictable. We use the word nowcasting. So we can nowcast an outbreak of flu as it happens, instead of waiting for days. But then we wondered, how about mood and sentiment? So we gathered all this data, and we assembled some simple tools to extract sentiment associated with words. So we have a tool to measure the degree of fear or anger contained in a document. And then we can apply our sentiment detection tools, and we can see signals like this. In this case, there is a time series of joy, and you can see these periodic peaks of joy corresponding to Christmas and New Year's, year after year. And the same for anger. You actually can see a very different picture, of course. So there is no Christmas effect in anger, although something seems to be moving around Halloween, and perhaps it has to do with the kind of topics. We see, however, a major transition in 2010 in October that corresponds to the spending cuts that triggered very negative, angry feelings in the population, apparently, and then another transition corresponding to the London riots of 2011. So we thought we can turn this into a visualization to make the point that we can communicate to maybe others, decision makers, policy makers, what is in the social media content, in the communications in the country. So if you keep an eye on the date here, you can see that in 2009, it was a normal situation with not too much negativity, but as we approach the date of October 2010, where there has been a major announcement about spending cuts, we will see an effect. Like, there it is. This is the effect of the announcement of the spending cuts, translated into a face expression that represents the amount of fear and anger registered in the contents of communications between people. And that continued for a while. The effect of this announcement haven't gone away yet. And then there has been a slightly more peaceful period during the royal wedding, and after that there has been another very negative time corresponding to the riots of London and the other cities in the UK. The idea is that one can, again, nowcast, not forecast. We are hoping that we can access more and more information about what's happening in society by just analyzing the communications among people, and to combine this with the contents of newspapers as well. So that's our next step. There is a theory called the cultivation theory. The idea that the contents of media shape public opinion and public perceptions. And in order to establish this, one needs to analyze the contents of media and the public. And that's just an example of the kind of works media analysts do. They study public opinion, they study media content, they find the connections between the two. And if you really want to work towards a computational social science, then you really should automate both. And we can demonstrate that we can really access media content accurately. But we were interested in accessing public opinion without opinion polls. And we believe that social media could be part of the answer. Of course, there are other ways. There are blogs, there are many other things. Social media could contain part of the answer, understanding what people are talking and thinking about and how and what they're feeling on a very large level, as a population level, not individually, by analyzing topic and mood in social media. And that can close the loop and provide vital information for social scientists who are going to be always in control and in the center of this analysis, but they can just access much, much larger and much more relevant information in a very short time because of this artificial intelligence technology that now is available for their studies.